Welcome to this lecture. Now from on it will be all interesting lectures because we'll just make our backdoor much more interesting and much more advanced. So first of all, you can see that this was the server, and let me just make this spaces. And basically, so what you can see here is we have made this connection between the server and a client quite successfully. We saw how we can list the connection with that statement before. So next thing what I want you to show is, so before that, let me just run this one more time, and let me just go here at the list connections, and let me show you what changes I have made. So it is our backdoor, obviously it is backdoor.py file, and it will be listening on this port. Let's go back to our Windows machine. Let's run that backdoor.py over here. Let's go back to our Kali Linux, and it is showing that the connection has been established to that machine. Let me now again list that. Then you could see I have made this basically the details quite right in the place above these numbers, or basically above these informations. So in the previous lecture you could see that it was not at the right place, it was going somewhere here, and port was obviously not at the right place. So I have made some changes. You can make this or basically grab the code from the resource section. So what I just made was I just get some position like this. So instead of here putting 3 spaces, I just made somewhere 4 and somewhere 3 in order to be at the right places. So it is just a small task, so I didn't cover it in the videos, but you can do on it your own because it is a simple task. You can simply see how much space you needed and simply add that number to here. So this was what we did in the previous lecture. We saw how we just listed the connection that is established to the client. And if I just say X, which was used to just close the connection, then if I hit enter, it will just close. And if we go back to the Windows, it has also not executed anymore the Python code. So let's go back here and let's modify some of here contents. So now what we want to do is from now on we have to see how we can just make our payload much better than before. That means we have to run now different command on the client side and see how that works. So before that we have to now interact with that client. Till now we have just listed the connection with the list connection method, like we get this IP address, but we are not interacting with the client. So first of all we have to make the code so that it will interact with the client. So let me just go here, and this was the process to list the connection. So after we list the connection, let me just define the method which will just get that connections, or basically the interaction between the connections. So for that I'll just say select that connection which is going to interact with that connection or interact with that client. So I'll just going to pass here that is connection ID, which refers that we may have the different client that is connected to the server. So we'll just specify that we are just interacting with the one particular client at a time. And the next is the response. So I'll just say that if I just get the response, it should be get response, which is the socket information basically. So this is our second argument that we are going to pass in this select connection. So let's make first the global. So the global will be connection, and I'll just get the array info now. And here after we just connect, so basically if you see this array info is the info of the IP addresses, PC name, OS, and the username. You could see right here we are not getting the username, but now we have to capture the username. We'll capture the PC name over here, which is this PC name, OS, and also the IP addresses of the client in this array info. So let's go over here, and the first thing I want to do in this method is, let me just start with this try catch block because there may be the exception. So let's write this try catch block, and first of all let me just get this connection ID which is sent from here. Let's grab that first. So it should be, let me first typecast this before just doing anything, so that it will be converted into the integer, because you know that input function will just get you the connection ID in the form of a string, but we want that in the form of integer. That means we are just converting that string to the integer. Next thing is I want something that is the connection. So if you see, we have these array connections of array, and I want that. If I just see here, so you can see what I have just done here. So I have just getting this connection which is specific to particular client. So you can think like this way. So there may be the list of connection, maybe 1 2 3 4 5, but in our case it starts with 0. So there may be this list of connection that is going to connect to the server. Maybe we have only 3 connections, but at a time we can only interact with one. That means we'll just say that array connections, that is this list of connections, and only one at a time, that is with this connection ID. If I say something like, okay, I want these array connections, and that is only with the first client, that is going to give us this. So let's remove this, and here what you want to do is we have to now catch that exception. If there is any exception, we're going to catch it here. We'll just print the message to the user, that is invalid choice. There is no any client that is with that connection ID. Please try again. So I think this exclamation should be over there, not here. Okay, I'll just put comma. If I'm wrong over here, just bear with me, and I'll just return if there is any error, because that is invalid and we are not going to do anything if there is an error. So the next part is a else part, and in this else part what we are going to get is, okay, we're going to get, let me just make spaces, and in this else part we are going to get some of the information like IP addresses, and you could see I have told you before that we are going to get that from this array info, because we are getting the IP addresses, the PC name, and the OS and the username, everything in this array info. So let's code that here. So what am I going to do is I'll just store it in the array info that we just created, and here I want the array addresses, and you know all the information is inside this array addresses. Connection ID is basically referring to that particular client, and here I want maybe the first, which will be your addresses, or basically if you see, the first part will be always your connection ID and the IP addresses. So we are just getting first of all the IP addresses of that client. So we'll just catch that IP address. Okay, what we have to do here is, okay, let's typecast this. We can convert this for maybe from integer to the string. So next thing I want to get is obviously in the form of PC name. We want something, okay, let me just type here what we want so that we don't have any confusion before. So first thing I want is IP address. We have got over here, that is basically the addresses of the client and the connection ID, and the first part of that list will be IP address. Next thing I want will be PC name maybe, and the OS, and the last I want the username. So let's go over here and let's start now writing the next part for our PC name. Now this will be PC name. We don't want the port name, and just remember that we don't want port name which is in the list at the index 1. So we don't want that. We just want our, let me say first of all is connection ID, and we want that is 2, not 1, because 2 is your PC name, 1 is your port name. We don't want port name. So next thing, so I have told you that if you want to go down, basically if you want the multiple line execution of this statement, you can use this backward slash and you can go down in order to execute. And here what I want is maybe the another thing that will be array addresses, and here connection ID. So I want the OS, which is operating system. So I'll just say 3 is our OS, and next is to go again to next line. I'll just get again another information from this client, and this client information will be your username. So it will be at the 4th index. You can check your information from this by just typing this information or writing this manually code on your PC, and you can see what information you can get on each of this list. But I assure you that the list will be something like this. So first in this list will be IP address, next will be your port name. So next in this will be port name or port address, and third one will be your PC name. So this will be your list and the PC name and your OS, which is operating system, and after that it will be your username. So this will be stored as in this array of addresses, and basically this is the socket family command. So you can check the documentation if you want to know more about that. And the next thing if I want to say here is this responses. So we'll just see what this response is. So if this response is true, so this, okay, it is not true, it is in this true. If this is true, then what I want is I want the information printed right away that you are you are connected to, and if you see I want the IP addresses. So what am I going to do is I'll just say array info that we have this information, and if you see it has the indexes that is 0, which represents that it is basically your IP address. So you can see in the array info the first index is IP address, so we are just saying the information that you are connected to this IP address. And let me just give some spaces here and some more spaces, and just format it with the /n. So if the responses is positive, we'll just see that, and we'll just return that connection. So this will be our select connection method. But if you see we haven't called this method anywhere, let's go to our menu section, which is this menu section, and let's see how we can just interact with this. So what am I going to do over here is, first of all, you can see we have got this statement which is saying that input something from the user. So I'll just say elif, and the string, so let me say string, and it should be choice. String choice is entered by the user, and if that, and let's slice that string first. And if you are confused on the slicing part, let me show you real quick. Ideally, open the ideally, and if I say something like, let me say this is my name, and if I say ABCD, and if I want to be sliced from maybe from this B to E, what I need to do is simply put the indexes of that in here. So first of all will be inclusion position, that is if I want only this letter, that is BCD, not E, I have to go from 0 index and first index. So first of all I'll just put 1 because I want to go from B. I'll put the colon, and I have to go from B to D, that means I have to count till D now. So B is at 1, C is at 2, D is 3, but we don't have to put 3 here, we have to put 4 because we have to include one more, because this is not an inclusion position, this is an exclusion position. So instead of just 3, because we want to include this letter which is at position 3, so you have to put here 4. If I do this, then you will get BCD. So this is your slicing technique. So what we just did here is basically we are getting something that is entered by the user, only the 3 characters. So after we just get that, we'll just check, and if that string that is entered by the user is maybe this I. So we are just saying that basically what we are telling here is it starts from the indexes 0, 1, 2. So we are only including this string, and if it is the case, then, and let me just say len, that is we are also checking if that string choice has the length that is greater than 3, then what we are going to do here is we are going to select that connection. Basically we have made this method right over here that is going to just select that connection. So we just did here. So we are going to just select that in this main menu. If I get this dash dash I, so if I get the command that is dash dash l, will just list the connection. We have seen this command right here that is doing dash dash l, and we are just listing the connection. Now instead of dash dash l, if I get something that is dash dash I, we have to select that connection because we have to now interact with that connection. So what I'm going to do here is, if you see in the select connection, we have passed some argument over there. So you could see I have already told you before that it will be the connection ID that refers to the particular client. Maybe there will be the list of client. We want to interact with only one client. That means this will be connection ID that is referring to the particular client. Another will be the response. So let's go over here, and where is the main menu? Okay, it is here. So in the select connection, first of all, I'll just say that's string choice, and I have to now get these four. So let me show you what am I doing here, and the next thing will be true in order to see that if it has been connected properly or not. So let me make space over here. So now what am I done over here? Let's see. So let's go over here, select connection, and what we did was basically we get the connection ID, and if this response was positive, then it is going to get us you are connected to these IP addresses. So let's go back to the menu and show you what am I doing over here. So if I just type here command, so let me just go over here, and if I just type here command instead of x, if I say something like dash dash I, in this case this is I, and this dash dash I is basically the three part of this string choice, and there can be one more letter which is the connection ID. So let me just run this and show you. So let me just run here, and it is running on the port. Let's go back to our Windows and let's run our backdoor, that is from here. Let's go back. We should have get the connection. Let me just list that connection first. We have seen this before, and you could see now. So next thing what you want to do is interact. So you could see ID is there. So in order to interact with the client, you have to first type dash dash I. I have already shown you here that in order to select the connection, you have to put dash dash I. And the next thing that you want to add is this 0, because this is the client ID you want to interact. And you could see it has shown here that is select connection, and this part over here represents the complete what we just sent after this dash dash I. So this first part, because I have told you this will be your connection ID. So if you just go to the select connection part again, and this is your connection ID which is after this dash dash I. So if I hit enter now, you will see that you are connected to this IP address. So that means we have successfully run our select connection. Now from the next lecture, we can just make our payload much more superior than before, because we have to now run many commands on this machine, like running the web browsers, running maybe the screenshot, taking the screenshot, and running log command, shutdown command. We'll do much more in the next lecture. See you in the next one.